You know, some RPGs are just too dang restrictive. This one right here, only 12 classes and 9 races to choose from. Sure, it has supplemental books, but what does that give you? One extra class and like 40 different races? Hardly what I'd call a boon of choices. Don't even get me started on the rules of combat. You're telling me I can only choose from 362 spells? I'm working with both hands tied behind my back here. For those looking for a game only limited by your imagination, may I present Abstract Dungeon. Abstract Dungeon is a D6 based system that focuses more on the storytelling aspect of RPGs rather than the rules. The game has no race or class selection. Instead, you determine your ability scores, 3 distinct traits, and then the rest is completely freeform. You can play as a standard fantasy race, a talking animal, an old statue given magical life, or anything else you can think of. Your main abilities are toughness, agility, intellect, and spirit. Rather than roll for scores, you assign a number to each ability. Your array of numbers is 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they represent how many dice you have in your pool for each ability. Your 3 traits can be anything you want them to be. The book recommends they be specific, so instead of saying one of your traits is smart, you can say that your trait is good at riddles. Each trait has 1 die assigned to it. The book provides tables for random traits as well as a table for random ability generation, which I'm a big fan of. Resolving encounters is pretty unique in Abstract Dungeon. At the start of the game, you roll your ability dice, 1 for each trait, and a bonus die. You then set them aside, creating dice pools. When you happen upon an obstacle, you spend a die from the appropriate dice pool. For example, if you happen across a river with a sweeping current, rather than roll the dice and hope for the best, you just spend a die from your dice pool and you get a guaranteed success. Combat is where the resource management gets interesting. The GM rolls a number of dice to represent the health of the monsters you're fighting. When you attack a monster, you spend a die that's equal to or greater than the monster's die to deal damage. You can spend a lower die, but that will just lower the monster die's value. After everyone's turn, if the monsters are still standing, they attack, and instead of a dice roll, their damage lowers the value of your dice. So a goblin shooting an arrow might lower a single die's value by 1. The key to making this resource management fun is how you describe your actions. Yes, there's the base attacking by using an agility or toughness die. However, you can also utilize spells using spirit or intellect, or maybe outsmarting a foe using your superior intellect or just overwhelming willpower. This description mechanic is very similar to the Mighty Deeds in Dungeon Crawl Classics. However, it's applied to everything instead of just combat. For those who don't like character death, good news. Death is nearly impossible. When you run out of dice in one of your dice pools, that player is incapacitated until they take a rest and replenish their dice pool. To me, the most interesting part of this game is the freedom you have when it comes to character creation. Back in 2019, I was going to run this game, and before that fell through, we had a pretty colorful cast of characters created. We had a half-elf, half-demon warrior who was hunting down an evil cult. We had a paladin turned into a magic talking dog by the evil cult. We had a 9-year-old girl who could speak to the dead and lost her parents due to the evil cult. And finally, we had Kelric Grins, a spell sword who was secretly Santa Claus and also secretly the half-elf's father. He was my favorite. If Abstract Dungeon sounds interesting to you, you can find it for cheap on DriveThruRPG. The link's in the description below. That's about all I have to say today. Goodbye. I don't want to pick these cards up.